So, whatever motivated you to get an electric bike?
Well, I wanted to bike up this hill, but there's a hill here. And it's very difficult for me to do and took a while, and you get hot and sweaty afterwards. So an electric bike makes it doable. You still get the advantage of being outside and bicycle, and you get some exercise. You can set them so that you do part of the work. But at the same time, it makes it like as though it's level ground.
George?
Well, for me, I typically bike to work when the weather's good. I hate to find alternative transportation when it's raining or when I have to be at work at 8 in the morning. So a bike, an electric bike with fenders and a good parka makes that possible.
Oh. There goes some regular bicyclists. So this is the bike.
Yeah, this one's fairly new. It's from Sweden, and it's fairly lightweight. And,
Blix.
Blix is the manufacturer. So the battery's here. This one has the motor in the rear, and you have options as to how much power you want. You can set it for just a little assist or medium, or if you set it on the high power, it almost is like an electric scooter. I always set it in the middle, so I'm doing part of the work, but the bike allows me to do this elevation without really having to work too hard.
So you can pedal at the same time you're using the...
Exactly. A lot of them are like this. It's called electric assist. So you're pedaling and you're contributing part of the motion to the bike, but it is adding on to the power from the electric motor.
So you can get some exercise.
Absolutely. Yep. Definitely. Especially coming up the hill here.
George has a different kind of bike. Yeah, this bike
10 years old.
Yeah, 10 years old, made by Mr. Hebb, who manufactured these out of Texas. He's a 66-year-old triathlete. He's no longer selling them, but he assures me that he'll be selling parts for the rest of his life. The only part I've had to buy is a throttle. Everything else has worked extremely well. Unusual feature of this bike is the motor is in the front wheel, which is that's unusual, but it gives more rotational inertia, so it's steadier. Also, it's got the front shocks, and that means that if you happen to be unfortunate enough to hit a pothole or a squirrel, you're likelier to survive than the squirrel. It also has fenders and a chain guard, so that means I can wear a suit going up to campus, which I never have done, but it's always possible.
Oh, that's great.
It's also got a bell.
So how far can you go on one battery charge?
I've never really pushed the limit. I live on Upper Spring Street, and that's the only thing I use it for is coming up to campus. So there's plenty of juice even when I reach Science Hill from basically Upper Spring Street.
So George, you usually charge it every day then?
I charge it every day, yes.
Okay. I find that I can go up and down twice without having to recharge it, and there's still some juice left in the battery. I haven't pushed it. So that's about 14-15 miles, and if you don't have hills, it'll go probably a good 50 miles on a single charge.
What happens if you run out of juice?
Well, it still works just fine. In fact, you can turn the power off if you want, and it'll operate like a regular bike. The electric bikes are heavier. The batteries are somewhat heavier, so it's requires a little more oomph if you don't have the electricity there. But the bike is still perfectly functional without the electricity. And the batteries last a long time. This bike is going on its third year. I put about 2,500 miles on it so far, and there's no evidence that the battery is not going to hold up. On level ground, the batteries are good for 20,000 miles is what they predict for
Oh, wow.
Particular brand of bike.
20,000 miles.
Well, they've really improved a lot over
Mhm.
the years, and they just, when it finally does go, it's a cartridge in here, and you can just simply replace the battery inside this casing here.
It says comfort on that bike. Is
With a
it?
K, yes. Well, I
Is
guess
it-
that's the Scandinavian version of comfort.
Okay. Yeah. And you're.
Oh, yeah. Oh, this is called a step through. That's what they call it. It's not a girl's bike. It's a step through. And for older people, it's really safe because if you think you're going to fall, it's very easy to hop off the bike and step through there.
You don't have to lift your leg over.
That's right.
That's
right.
Yeah, like on my bike, I have it. Yeah. Okay. So how? And your battery life?
Same. The battery has been good for 10 years, and it's as strong as it was 10 years ago.
Wow.
I'd say I put about 2,000 miles on the bike, just up and down the hill.
Yeah.
So that's pretty hard on the battery going up a hill, but I haven't had any trouble with it at all. It's important to know the batteries aren't cheap. They're like $800. This battery, I'm told, is $800.
Yeah.
Have you priced yours?
They used to be that expensive. Right now, the battery for this one is selling for about $400.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh. And how much is the whole bike if you bought one?
This one was about $2,000, which is kind of typical. They were selling a nice electric bike in Costco a couple weeks ago for about $1,300. There are fancier ones, of course, that go for $3,000 or $4,000. I think $2,000 is a kind of a mid-range electric bike.
That's a reasonable price to expect.
Yeah.
Well,
and it also, it's important to note that if you use this every day, it pays for itself in parking fees in a little over 2 years.
Yes.
And it's a much more pleasant
Yes.
and healthy way to get to campus. I can be on campus from my house in less than 10 minutes. It would take me longer to drive because it's a very direct route. And not only that, but
Can you come up with that shortcut at the end of Springfield?
yes, yeah, there's a very nice shortcut through a eucalyptus grove that you can actually see in the distance over there by the wharf.
Underneath the sailboat?
Just underneath the sailboat is where we live. It actually takes longer to drive to campus. It takes door to door, it's 10 minutes. In a car, it's more like 15 to 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Because you've got to, first of all, you've got to go twice as far, for me anyway.
Yeah.
And then you've got to walk from the parking lot to the campus. And it's if you want to come onto the campus in midday, you'll be lucky if you can find a parking place.
Right, and for those of us who are in science, and you park in the Core West parking structure, part of the time is going round and round and round in the Core West parking structure. So I agree. For me, it's faster on the bicycle than by hand.
Okay. There goes a skateboarder down the hill. So, well, what would you recommend? I mean, is this a good thing for students or faculty or staff? Or, I mean, getting up to campus, as you say, Barry, is a push. If you're just walking or on a bicycle, but it's better than taking the bus and better than driving and better than...
Yeah, I'm surprised that I don't see more of them. There are getting to be more of them, but still not that common because they aren't really that expensive. And boy, once you've got them, there's almost no downside to it, really.
Yeah.
And I must say the regular bikers are all quite respectful. I haven't had any difficulty with them thinking we were cheating in some way.
And it's legal to ride on this bike path?
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah, that's the beauty of it. It's administratively equivalent to a regular bicycle.
Right, because you are doing part of the work.
And you can always turn your motor off if the police are around.
And they're very quiet, too. That's the other thing. And it's often difficult for people to know that you have an electric bicycle. say.
Uh-huh.
I often feel a little guilty if I go whizzing by them, but nobody has gotten angry about it. So it's been fun.
Maybe smug is the more important. Yeah. Uh-huh. Well, so what would you recommend for folks that might want to think about? I mean, where would you go to try to buy one of these things?
I haven't been in the market for years, so Barry will have to handle that one.
Yeah, so I bought this just about 2.5 years ago, and my first one was almost 10 years ago, and there were not very many options. But today there are lots of options. So several of the bike shops in town now carry electric bikes, and they carry several brands and the whole range of prices. So whereas it was a little bit difficult a while ago, it's not anymore. So a couple of the bikes on big bike shops on Mission Street, I bought my bike at one of those shops. They have quite a number of different types. The other thing I should say, another option is I know a professor in biology who has this brand, but it's a completely fold-up bike. Fold-up bike. And so in her case, her spouse works on campus, and so she can come one way and then maybe ride home with him, just folding up the bike, which folds into a quite compact little package.
Oh, my goodness. Oh.
So lots of options, lots of good options.
So you could take that bike on the bus easily, just carry it on like a suitcase.
Yep.
Oh. Well, that's an extraordinary idea. Well, why don't we end with that? Yeah, and this is it's so lovely.